She's so sexy, so amazing. Woot woot. Today we're making oil painting and I've been getting some requests to make more technical stuff, just to kind of show you guys like the basics if you're a beginner and give you guys some tricks and some tools that you can apply to your own creative process. If you're a beginner and you don't even know where to start, to show you guys kind of those like step-by-step processes that you can do if you want to start painting and just creatively express yourself visually. That's a lot of ease, a lot of creatively, visually. I normally don't use a reference image and I decided to do one or create one for this painting so that I can actually appeal to most of you guys, because I do know that if you're not comfortable with a visual medium, you're not comfortable working creatively, oftentimes you might resort to wanting some sort of reference image. When I do use a reference image, I tend to like to create my own. I don't like to just go on Google and look for something. That's not really how I roll. Or if I kind of want to have a loose reference image, then I will pick out a bunch of different photos and just kind of scroll through my phone every once in a while, not really look at them, but just look at them here. And like, I have a really weird process. We're not gonna get into that. That's probably for more advanced, like if you really just are working with a visual medium all the time. But I don't know, we're all different. We all have different methods. So I'm sure that my method is gonna be different from some other artists, but you're here on my channel, so you probably wanna see how I do things. So follow along. I'm actually not gonna be showing you guys like the full process here on YouTube. I will be revealing that to my patrons because I don't want to bore y'all here and your attention spans are like much shorter. But if you do want to see the longer video, also you'll be able to see the process of me gridding this painting and also the draft. You'll see the reference image on there. You'll just see the ins and outs. I'm going to talk really thoroughly on there. The video is going to be longer, so you'll be able to see much more in depth and also follow along if you want to paint with me in that video. But if you're here with me, I really appreciate you. It's definitely going to be entertaining because you're seeing a lot of work being condensed into a short amount of time. Without further ado, let's start by squeezing the oil paints and the colors that you want to use for your reference image. We're going to be using turpentine mostly, and for the final layers I like to put a little bit of linseed oil, but if you don't have linseed oil available, you don't need it. Linseed oil tends to give it a little bit of a sheen, a little bit of a gloss, and also it just is a different texture. You can try it out if you have some experience with oils. As you can tell, I started off with the highlights, the most highlighted areas of the figure, and I used a light pink, although in the end I'm actually going to be changing it up a little bit by adding a little bit of lime green, but you will see later. Now I'm adding some shadows. I didn't go into this painting with a consecutive plan in mind. I just decided to lay out the colors, and I think you should try to do the same. Don't be afraid to follow your intuition, your feeling. It really helps me to focus on different color sections. So if I have a color on my paintbrush, I will work with that color and add some light shades and darker shades of that color variation before I switch to the next. In the very beginning, I will tend to exaggerate the colors that I see, or the hues. So you can see that I have some greens, some yellows, some pinks, some reds, some blues, and those areas, don't be afraid to exaggerate, because you can always blend it out in the end, and you can always tune it down as you're painting and going along. One of the main things I want to exaggerate when you're painting, if you're not accustomed, is just don't be afraid. And also calm down. This is a really, let's say, it's a calm experience. You're experiencing yourself, the present moment when you're painting, especially when you're painting with a reference image, and you need to be in this present state where you're focusing on the photo, you're focusing on what you're painting, the different color tones. I don't think it's nice or pleasant to do that in an uncalm state or an anxious state. So calm down and enjoy the process, and also don't get frustrated if you make a mistake. You can always go back later. If it's a really big mistake, you can always wait until it dries and then fix it afterwards. I know that I have the tendency to accidentally press with my left hand, sort of like on a keyboard. When I make a mistake on Photoshop, I will press undo with my left hand, and I'll do the movements when I make a mistake, kind of it's a tick. I'm so used to it, and then I'll realize, oh no, this is the physical reality and I can't really undo it. That's pretty upsetting. Right now, this area I'm painting the hand. I actually regretted not painting the shadow area, the background. I hadn't really planned whether I wanted to have it a different color or not. I end up having it the same color as the background, so that was just my mistake for not planning it thoroughly, because I'm gonna end up having to go in. It's a little bit annoying once you've already gotten the blendedness of the background to look amazing, and then you have to reblend everything. It's just extra time that I could have avoided. And now I'm using a dry brush. Oh no, actually earlier I'm kind of back and forth with a couple of brushes. I'll have one brush that is dry and I'll use it to blend out the different tones together, sort of like when you're doing makeup. If you've done makeup before, you'll have a blending brush. So in my hand I'm holding about, I want to say 3-4 brushes, and I'll have 2 medium-sized brushes. I don't want to be too specific in telling you guys which brushes to get, because I think that might just intimidate you. I feel like there's so many different types of brushes. You can just go and pick some medium brushes that you want to try, and you have to feel it out, because there's no right way to do something, and I'm a firm believer that you can pretty much paint with everything. I tend to use my fingers a lot of the times too. So have some fine detail brushes available, and also have some medium-sized brushes, and ideally 2 of those, so that you can also blend things out. I also recommend a fan brush. It helps with blending. I'm gonna show you guys how that looks like right here. A fan brush, really, it's amazing. It's just so soft and you can blend different shades together. That's definitely a trick tip for those of you guys who aren't accustomed to painting. I didn't really know what it did before, but after I discovered it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. There's also different sizes for a fan brush. So yeah, just try which ones you guys want. Depends on how big the painting is. I'm just filling in the different colors of the crystal. I've been in such a crystal mood. I've just been loving crystals. So I guess I wanted to paint one. It's my first time painting one though. I quite love it because there's so many different color variations within it. The only problem with that is that you need to make sure your brush is clean, and that is also why I started with the light yellows, because my brush was super clean, and then I ended up with a darker shade. So you can also plan your painting process in that way by starting with the light colors. And that's also what I did with a skin tone. I started with the highlights and then went on to the dirtier, darker colors that are not so susceptible to being ruined. So I like to have some areas in the painting really pristine, primaries, gorgeous. Your eyes immediately are just like, oh, that's a vibe. And then I will go in with the darker shades. You can see that there's a lot of details, so you really want to treat this as a meditation, relaxation, listen to some music. And don't be intimidated by how much is left. And also, I think a lot of people struggle with finishing. When they start painting something, they will struggle with completing it. That is all motivation and discipline, guys. Nobody wants to finish a painting. I mean, personally, I struggled with that a lot, and I realized one day, I was like, I just have to do it. There's no other way. So just sit your butt down and do it and force yourself. It's kind of like you don't feel like going to work. It's the same thing, but you have to go. You have to wake up in the morning and go. That's the same attitude towards art. I don't know why people think that there's like different rules for art. It's still effort, it's still time. You have to put the time in order for it to complete the piece. I'm now doing the hand as the last, it's almost the last things that I'm doing is the hand. That's a really bad habit. I should definitely be treating the hand equally to the rest of the body parts. They're all made equal. It's a bad habit, so don't learn from me. And honestly, the hand is not realistically harder to paint than any of the other areas. It's just a perception that we have, which is kind of silly. I don't know why we presume that the hand is more difficult. Perhaps it's just it's a finer body part, so you have to go more in depth and more in detail. Actually, at this point, I had lost my original reference image, so I'm painting now without a reference image, and I'm going in with the lime greens, exaggerating the highlights, and yeah, at this point, I was kind of frustrated that I had lost the reference image, and I ended up making another one for my patrons. And here I'm just going in with the last touches to create that current vibe. So this painting is actually called Crystal Currents. Finishing off the background, and yeah, I love how it's turning out. We are slowly coming to an end, and I'm adding final touches, retouching the background because I messed up and I should have probably just made the background perfect in the first go. If you're able to, make sure to have the background pristine before you start the subject painting. This way you just won't have to waste more time in the end, and it's a little bit harder to trace around your figure once you're done. But like I said earlier, if you make a mistake, you can always fix it, so don't worry if you messed up the sequence, etc. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe. Maybe share with your friends. I have a lot of cool videos coming up. I really look forward to sharing them with you guys. And let me know, let me know if you have any topics you want me to cover in future videos as well. And she's done. I would have loved to go a second round into everything. However, I lost my original reference image and I'm not confident enough about skin tones to just go in fully. Although I did some highlights on my own, and yeah, I mean, this is how it turned out. Next time I'll definitely do a second round because I won't lose my reference image. But yeah, I'm still quite happy with how it turned out. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.